da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Boy, I'm not gonna make the mistake I made last night when I left here. Guy sent me walking through halfway through downtown Atlanta at 8:30 at night to go to the train station. No, sir, not happening. Holy moly! Good Lord! Yeah. Brian. Brian.
Yo.
I don't like it when I hear silence. I've got our text box open, so.
All right, you see his text?
I don't see his text. I'm talking about between you and me.
Okay. Dabble's
One
here.
thing. Oh, good. One thing that's good to do is when you play the opening, to send me a text to say live, just say live. So like you would verbally, but you can't say it verbally, but you can text it to me so I know you got me up. Copy that.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. How we looking? How we looking? How we looking?
Still good.
Okay. Bill Steele's inside the press box. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two.
Still got you.
That's just me being anal.
1 minute.
So I'm showing 604, 605, 01, 02, 03, 04, 05.
Perfect.
Really? That's right on?
You're like a second behind, but yeah.
That's good.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornblut, Bill Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Tuesday night, day 2 of SEC Media Days here in Atlanta. Phil Kornblut with the SEC folks, where we've had 4 more coaches come through today from Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Florida. And we'll try to get to all 4 of those coaches for you tonight here on Sports Talk. Professor Tom Hayes is back at the studios in downtown Columbia. Meantime, up at Clemson, well, actually just above Clemson, further west in the mountains up at the reserve at Lake Keowee, it's the annual Dabo Swinney golf tournament to kick off the football season. And kind of a media day for him, though later this week he'll be in Charlotte for ACC Media Day. And Will Pelagic is there with Coach Swinney. And I swear, I hate that these 2 events conflict, because I think it's a shame that South Carolina's premier media golfer is not able to participate to win another golf tournament. So I know I was missed up there. That goes without saying.
I know, Corn. Dabo is sad that you couldn't be up here to be the ringer, but he was kind of playing beat the hack on number 16. How'd you do out there, Coach?
Well, I just kind of hung on the par 3 there and kept a pitching wedge and a 9-iron in my hand all day. So hit a couple good ones, but that's it for me. That's kind of my last little hoorah for the season. I put them up and excited to get back on the gridiron.
Where would you say your mindset is right now as we sit just a couple of weeks away from fall camp?
Just really focused. That's what I love about this time of year. The off season for me, as a visual here, there's a lot. My focus widens because there's just a lot going on, a lot that we're involved in. And this time of year, it's fun for me because we really get to narrow that focus and get back to doing really what I love to do more than anything, and that's coach and teach and be around the players, be on the field, and compete and get a result every week. So excited about getting back going.
People have talked to you about one particular position, it seems like more than most. What do you have to see out of that one position in order to be satisfied with your plan of attack, whether it's 1 quarterback, whether it's 2 quarterbacks going into not only the first game of the season, but the season overall?
Well, I think we're fortunate, first of all, that we got 3 guys that we can win with. I think I don't have any – I really, truly – I know we got 2 that haven't taken a snap, so it's kind of crazy to say. But based on what I've seen in our meetings and on the practice field, who they are, where they are mentally, physically, they certainly have the tools. I really feel like that we can compete in our league with 3 guys. So I think that all 3 are very capable of executing our offense at a high level. So the biggest thing is who's the most consistent, who makes the least mistakes, who gives us, the best opportunity to win. And part of that is not doing things that get you beat. So that's just what we practice for every day. I mean, you got 25 practices that they give us. Every one of them will count. We'll have 3 scrimmages. We'll have a lot of competitive periods. You try to simulate everything you can. You grade everything you can. Everything matters. And then, sometimes a guy separates. Sometimes it's really, really, really close. Sometimes a guy passes somebody up. So, you just have to go through the process. But we're fortunate that we got a guy back who's won the ACC, who's won 12 games for his team and has great experience and is so much better than he was this time last year through that experience. Great leader, great young man in Kelly Bryant. And then you got two really talented freshmen that aren't going to go away, that are going to have an opportunity to play. So we'll see how it all shakes out. And, but at the end of the day, for me, it's just the fact that you have such really good competition at not just that, a lot of positions. Probably kicker we might have more competition there than at any position on our team, and I'm excited about that because that makes us better.
Of course, we're talking with Dabo Sweeney at his annual media golf outing. Here we talk on Sports Talk. We're going to get a chance to see you also on Thursday in Charlotte at the ACC media kickoff. Your position in the conference didn't come overnight. How often do you reflect about how long it took to get where you are, where you're not just the hunted, but you're the unquestioned leader of this conference?
I don't really look at it that way. I mean, I just try to take one year at a time. We start over every year. I mean, it's fun to reflect. I mean, it's been my 10th year as the head coach, so I've had 9 years, and we really have only had 1 year where I felt like we were below average. I mean, our first year we won 9 games and played for our championship, so it was a good start. 2010, we were in every game, just really couldn't close some games out. But we got back on track in 11, won the ACC, and 10 games that year, and we're going now for hopefully 8-10+ win seasons in a row if we can find a way to get it done this year. So just the consistency is what I'm most proud of, more than anything. That's really what we set out to do, was to build a great program, a consistent program, a team that would give us a chance year in and year out. And I think that's where we are. But as far as, I'm never like, okay, we want to be the program out front. I just want to be the best version of us. And, we're just fortunate that we've had a lot of consistency and continuity, and, got a great staff, and guys have come in here and bought into what we do. And we've had to win some big games along the way. So I think we got a lot to draw on, this particular team, especially the most veteran team I've had. So we got a bunch of guys that have got a lot of great experience to draw on. They expect to win. And they know what it takes. So I think as a coach, this will be a fun team to be around.
What do you think the biggest challenge is that you guys will have to overcome as you enter in another very tough schedule?
Well, I just think, just the fact of really what we just talked about. And that is, when you're a team that has had the type of success and consistency that we've had, you have to play to a certain standard every single week, and you really have to stay focused on that, because you're going to get everybody's best shot. That's just the way it is, and it's been that way for us for a while. And you're that team that everybody looks forward to playing, and so you can't get you can't worry about who you're playing week to week. You just have to stay focused on your preparation, your mindset, your commitment, and really truly playing each and every week as if it's the biggest game of the year. And that's a challenge when you're dealing with young people, but that's what it takes. That's probably the biggest challenge when you're dealing with a team that sometimes, when you've had this much success, these seniors, for example, have been in 3 playoffs. Well, you can't sit around and think that you're just guaranteed to go back to another playoff. Yeah, that's a great goal, but you better be locked in on where you are and just taking the next step and making sure it's with great purpose and precision in what you're doing.
Clemson head coach Dabo Sweeney, just in our final minute here of this segment, I know that asking you a chief concern on July 17th might not be a chief concern on August the 17th. What remains your most chief concern as we sit now, again, a week and a half away from when you guys strap it up?
I think for me, I love our team. I think that we've got the ingredients, got good depth, we got good experience, we're talented, we got character, we got leadership, we got a group of guys that know what it takes. But I think it's not really a concern, but I think just want everybody at this point to, because this is kind of, we're kind of pushing to finish the summer strong, and, you just hope that everybody can show up healthy and be ready to go.
We're going to do this again on Thursday, and I'm going to ask you more specifics. Today was the broad day.
Oh, broad day. Okay.
Today is the broad day. the almost effervescent, flowing day, just because you just get off the golf course.
Yeah.
We get you fresh on Thursday morning, and we'll do this all again, and
Okay.
and we'll ask you some more specifics about players in detail.
Okay. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Dabo. Dabo Swinney joining us here on Sports Talk Corn. And I tell you what, that's a man who feels like he's prepared for what's going on here in the coming weeks and days as they prepare for 2018.
And certainly he should. I mean, he's got a talent-laden team. He's got a question mark maybe in the secondary that they have to address, something we've talked about before, maybe some depth at the tackle position, the right tackle position on offense. But by and large, it's a team that's loaded and prepared to make another run for an ACC championship and the national playoffs as well. All right, we will be back. We'll have coverage from here at SEC Media Days, more from up at the Clemson golf outing as well. We'll be back in a moment. Well, I'm glad I turned on my clock.
That's a good move.
Well, I can't hear the music because this thing will not let you broadcast when you're going out through this way. You can't have two-way audio. It mutes itself. It kills it. So I can't really hear the music. But I'm glad I got my clock going because I knew it was coming up fast, and we got out on time, and it makes me happy. The only thing I'm mad about is that last me. I called him Mike Stoops instead of Mark Stoops. That just irritates the bejesus out of me. All right, so we'll come back and recap. Let's see where we at here. I need to just.
I got Georgia coach Kirby Smart.
Yeah, but I want to talk a little bit more about Dabo and all that. Is I'm trying to see. Can you ask Will if he can text message? Does he have enough on his? Does he have enough of a cell signal to be able to text message?
He said he has no cell reception there.
Ask him to. Can he text me through the Google Doc? I don't see a way to open up a text box here. Maybe he knows a way.
He said something about see the comment section and open it up and it should pop up.
I don't see, tell him I don't see a comment section. What I'm looking at is very plain. I don't see a. I'm seeing you're wanting GA here. Oh, I see. Oh, I see it. Okay. Well, maybe I see it. Let's see. Oh, tell him I've got a read-only version. It won't let me do anything. View only. This you can only view this document. To make changes, ask the owner for edit access. Oh, I'll send him this. Ask. Hello. All right, I'll send it to him. Maybe he gets that. Yeah, have Kirby Smart standing by. You tell Will go ahead and take it back. Pretty normal.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Well, the tenor of Dabo Sweeney's comments here at the reserve at Lake Kiowee, very similar to kind of what we spoke about earlier. It's hard to kind of call over it in the midst of a 10-minute segment, but the one thing that I think we took from today, Corn, was that not only do they feel comfortable with all three quarterbacks, but in talking to the offensive coaches, Clemson feels comfortable using more than one in particular game. And I think is the biggest revelation of today, is the fact that they're actually doing some very big market research on some dual quarterback systems. They referenced Oklahoma State when they had, of course, the former Northwest High School standout Mason Rudolph and J.W. Walsh. Of course, it's obviously something that's not ideal, but as we keep on saying, you want to maximize the 3 years of Trevor Lawrence by also being fair to what Kelly Bryant has to bring to the table.
Well, I'm not buying the three quarterback thing. I mean, I'm feel for Chase Bryce, who's probably going to have to do a lot of sitting because you got the veteran in Bryant and you got Superman allegedly in Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, just talking to people here who cover not just the SEC, but the football situation nationwide, I mean, they all are expecting Trevor Lawrence to be the guy at Clemson much sooner than later. And reading some of the comments from Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott and others today who were asked about it up at your golf outing, I mean, it just seems to me like they're leaving that door wide open for Trevor Lawrence to become the man maybe before preseason camp is over. I mean, going in right now, Kelly Bryant is listed as number one quarterback pro, but repeatedly they talked about how close that gap is between Bryant and Trevor Lawrence. Something they never said. You go back to the Cole Stout, Deshaun Watson situation, you never heard them say in that preseason camp that it was really close between the two. And in fact, Cole Stout started the first few games until Watson actually took over. I've said this since the end of spring. I think they're laying the groundwork for Trevor Lawrence to be the quarterback.
Well, Corn, I was sitting back the other day trying to think of if there's anything in my psyche I can think about where I've seen something similar to this before. And I keep going back to the same thing, and that is when everybody had the hot shot rookie coming in, the can't miss prospect, and that would have been Florida when they had a senior quarterback from Charlotte and Chris Leak, and you had Tim Tebow sitting there. And I thought about it. Maybe, I don't know if Dabo studied this or not, but you remember how you had the passing quarterback and the stout running quarterback who could throw a little bit, and then you made defenses have to work on both of them because you played both of them. I don't know whether Dabo has that in his head or not, but the time is coming for the hair, and as you say, it may be sooner than later. But I tell you what, you got a guy in Kelly Bryant who showed his toughness last year. He's going to show his toughness mentally this year, and not give up that position very quietly.
The way this is going to work, according to what all the people who are principal in making decisions say, their plan is to play all three of them at least against Furman, and then then maybe we'll see. Maybe we will see it obviously a more real formula borne out when they play Texas A&M in week number 2. But in my mind, you can't make more than one switch in my mind. Either you like a guy right out of the gate, you go with him, and you go with him for a while, and then you make one more switch, and then that's it. In my mind, you can't go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't think it works.
Well, I mean, the saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. If you have 3 quarterbacks, you really have none. They're smarter than that. They're not going to have a revolving door there at quarterback. That's formula for danger in that situation. So I can't see that happening. I think they're going to settle on their man, and that guy's going to take the ball early in the season and run with it. And if somebody stubs a toe here or there or gets hurt, then they'll have the next guy ready to go. I just have this feeling that it's going to be Trevor Lawrence because nobody at Clemson in a position to say so will come right out and say, listen, people, Kelly Bryant is our quarterback. There is no quarterback controversy here, and he is our guy moving forward. Unlike what they've said in the past in these, they've had a couple of quarterbacks in the mix. And not just at Clemson. Other schools, of course, do the same thing as well. Because I believe they're setting the stage for Trevor Lawrence to be the guy here in maybe in that Furman. I mean, certainly he's going to play in the Furman game. Will he start? I mean, loyalty is a great thing, but I go back to what Tony Elliott said after the spring game, and that is players want to play with other players. In other words, guys who are at their level, who came back from a potential NFL situation to win a championship. They don't want to mess around. I mean, they want the best guy in there at quarterback. And if Kelly is the best guy in camp and can win the job that way, so be it. But is he going to be that best guy? I mean, Trevor Lawrence, by what everybody at Clemson is saying, is so advanced both mentally and physically to run the position. I interviewed Marty Smith today from ESPN, and we'll have that interview for you later in the week. And, of course, he's as knowledgeable about this stuff as anybody, and he's been around Clemson a lot, and he thinks that he is Trevor Lawrence is one of those transcendental quarterbacks. He's a generational quarterback, and Clemson is fortunate enough to, within a very short period of time, to have a two-generation quarterbacks with a Deshaun Watson and possibly a Trevor Lawrence. So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to be intriguing to watch. I think this is the key thing for the Clemson coaching staff, really more than anything else they do, is how they handle this situation, keep everybody together, and keep everybody happy with the quarterback situation moving forward. Coming up here from the SEC Media Days in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, Kirby Smart, who has reason to, I think there is a very strong reason to vote Georgia to win the SEC East and maybe the SEC Championship again, despite my feelings and the feelings of others. I know you had Peter Burns on, I think, last week, Will, and I saw a story with him where he said flat out South Carolina will beat Georgia in Columbia, and I think that's going to happen too. But this Georgia team, you look at them, even though they take a hit on defense, they got 4 starting offensive linemen returning. The quarterback is back. Swift, the running back, could be every bit as good as the 2 that left. I know that's saying a lot, but this guy's a very special running back. They've got Terry Godwin back at wide receiver, who's a very good receiver. And they recruit well, so the guys they lose on defense, they'll be able to replace them with some guys. It's a very good-looking Georgia team, and I think Kirby Smart feels like he's got a very good team going into this season.
I think Corn, so much of what Georgia does well, their pedigree is running the football, and you mentioned Swift. And it's not that Jake Fromm didn't have an amazing year, because he did as a freshman, completing 62% of his passes, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I'm wondering if that is going to repeat itself just because there's not the big home run threat of Chubb and Michelle. I think it's impossible to imagine the same kind of output comes from the running game with the one player Swift as it did from the 2 players Chubb and Michelle. I mean, there were two 1,200-yard rushers who had 31 touchdowns between them. I mean, in my mind, that's very, very hard to repeat. And I think it's not necessarily reasonable to say that, or it's not unreasonable that picked them first in the division, but I don't think that the gap between them and whether it's South Carolina second or Florida second, whatever you want to pick, I don't think the gap is as wide as it was last year.
Well, the thing about Georgia, and as we've gravitated in college football, so many times defenses see the spread. So what was old-fashioned now becomes unique, because we saw early on with Georgia, when they started running down people's throats, they defense don't see that often anymore. And it was hard to stop for some defense to say, wait a minute, these guys are running right at us. Where's the spread? So Georgia's going back to old-fashioned, but it's now become unique as far as looking at an offensive attack is concerned.
Well, don't sell Swift short when it comes to his speed. He has outstanding speed, too. This is a guy that rushed for about 700 yards in limited action last year as a true freshman behind those 2 vets. When we come back, a little bit more from up in the mountains, Jeff Scott's with Will Pelagic coming up on Sports Talk. Okay. Brian, how's everything?
Sounds good. What is that squeaking behind you?
Was that squeaking behind me?
It sounds like a wheel turning or something.
Oh, kind of like it might be the escalator. That's probably the escalator that's about
okay.
25 feet from me.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, how are we looking? How's everything sounding?
Seems good.
Does this does my signal sound better than it did last night? At least that first part.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I think using this 4G, I've got to remember not to use public Wi-Fi. You got to use the hotspot or direct connect. Using the public Wi-Fi. Even though I went back and listened last night, I mean, it sounded good. It sounded fine. Once I changed over to the hotspot, it got better after that first segment. So Will's taking it back, and he's going to go. He's got a self-contained interview here with Jeff Scott, so it'll fill up the entire segment. Well, you've already got it. Okay. Then we'll do Kirby Smart and recruiting.
Hey, Phil, you know about this 10-second runoff rule at the end of the games in the SEC?
Yeah.
All right, Pro, just want to know if you know about it.
Yeah, I was in the room when it was discussed. Basically, if there's a call made and they go to a review and they find that the call was correct, they're going to run off an additional 10 seconds unless the team uses a timeout to keep it from running off.
All right.
We'll talk about this Aaron Murray story as well and his comments about Tennessee.
Welcome back to Dabo Sweeney's annual media golf tournament as we are here at the Reserve at Lake Kiowee as we get you ready for the football season. We're pleased to be joined by Clemson co-offensive coordinator Jeff Scott. Of course, there is a big topic on the hands of many people and the eyes of many people, and you're one of the people entrusted in making that decision. What do you have to see from a starting quarterback at Clemson out of the three that you have coming in this year in order to be satisfied they're ready to go game one?
Yeah, I think overall is consistency in the level of play. I mean, I think all three of those guys have the ability to make some big-time plays, but I think being able to play at a high level the majority of the time. I think that's what we're looking for. And I think also just having command of the offense. You know, you need the quarterback. He's a guy that everybody's looking to for direction. If the quarterback knows what he's doing and he's able to handle his business, then it makes it a lot easier on the offensive line, the running backs, the tight ends, and the wide receivers. So just overall command of the offense, consistency in play is really what we'll be evaluating here over the next month and a half.
It seems like you, Tony, and Brandon are kind of in concert. Kelly's the guy going into fall camp. What did you like from him, and how have you liked his progression?
Yeah, you know, Kelly had a really good spring for us. He didn't have a great spring game, which the spring game's not always indicative of the type of spring that a player may have. But, you know, I think for Kelly, it's really just taking that next step. I mean, he gained a lot of valuable experience in 14 games last year. I think he handled himself very well. I mean, that was probably one of the toughest situations to be in, is to have a talented team and have to replace a guy like Deshaun Watson. And those are huge shoes to fill. And Kelly went out there and just was himself and was his own man, led us to an ACC championship, back to the playoffs. And to be able to see him a year later, you know, I think is very exciting for our staff. I think just his speed of operation with the offense this spring, I think, was very noticeable. I think he also improved in some areas in the passing game and his overall knowledge of what's going on. I mean, I think the biggest level improvement for any player is really from their first year as a starter to that second year, and just that comfort level. And there's a lot less things to think about. You can really just go react and play. And I think that's what we'll see from Kelly this year.
There's obviously a pressure when you have a player who comes in the caliber of Trevor Lawrence. You want to maximize his time here. Many believe that he is a 3 years and out kind of guy. How do you go about resisting that temptation, but also wanting to see what you have out there?
Yeah, we're very excited about Trevor. I mean, he's a guy that we've known about since he was a freshman in high school. We think he has really unlimited potential. I mean, his ceiling is extremely high. If he stays healthy and continues to do the right things, I have no doubt he'll be a guy that'll be playing on Sundays. And, you know, this isn't the first time that we've had a situation like this. You know, quarterback position obviously is one that's under a lot of scrutiny and a big spotlight, but you know, we have very similar situations going on at other positions. With a guy like T. Higgins coming in at wide receiver, battling out some of the guys he's battling in the boundary. You know, but I think Trevor is a guy that, you know, I was really probably the thing I was most pleased with him this spring is just how calm, cool, and collective he was. It didn't look like the game was fast for him. He went out and learned the offense very well and executed well, and he learned some lessons as all young players are going to do. But there's no doubt he's got a very bright future at Clemson, and look forward to watching that progress here over the next few years.
A moment on Chase Brice, as we talk with co-offensive coordinator Jeff Scott at Clemson here. He kind of, I don't want to say seems like the forgotten man, but not to use a cliche, but it seems like he's the kind of guy who could be a bona fide starter anywhere unless it was here.
Yeah, no, Chase is a very talented guy. I mean, it's not just coaches speak when we say that we feel like we have three guys that we can go win a championship with. I mean, we really believe that. And it's because of the things that we've seen from him as he redshirted and in the bowl prep that we have. We spent a lot of time with those freshmen in that month getting ready for the bowl, keeping those guys after practice, after the varsity guys go in. And then also this spring, I mean, there were certain days that he was the most consistent guy out there. So he's got a bright future as well. And I think really it's a great position to be in. This is really, I hope that every year that we get ready to start the season, we're getting questions about, how we're going to figure out playing all these great players because, I've been on the other end of that too before growing up in this profession. And it's great to be in the position we're in. And, biggest thing is guys know the best player is going to play. And, we got 27 practices before we go out and kick it off first Furman. So it'll be fun to watch those guys compete and get better every day.
The wide receiver spot, you lose Kane, you lose McLeod, but you bring back a lot of guys who caught footballs for you last year. You mentioned T. Higgins. You think about Overton. You think about Amari Rodgers, guys of that nature. How do you feel about the complementary pieces and also some guys maybe, like a Kendrick or somebody like that who could maybe rise up and step in and get some run as a freshman?
I feel like this is probably the most the deepest group of receivers that we've had that are ready to play. And obviously, the two guys coming in we'll learn more about with Justin Ross, and then Darian Kendrick showed up in January, and so those guys are maybe a little bit further behind than the rest of the group, but very talented guys that can get in the mix. And one thing we take a lot of pride in is playing a lot of guys, so that when you do have years like this where you do have to replace two starters, it's not like the guy that's going to go in there hasn't played. We've got some guys that have played in some pivotal roles in different situations. But I'm excited about that group. I think, this spring was a big spring for them, just really growing up out of being a role player to being a primetime starter. And to really see those guys compete every day and get better really encouraged me, and the things I'm hearing from this summer are very encouraging. So I'm excited about this group and feel like they'll have a chance to have a lot of success this fall.
Speaking with Clemson co-offensive coordinator Jeff Scott here on Sports Talk as we get ready for the Clemson football season at Dabo Sweeney's Media Golf Tournament here at the Reserve at Lake Kiowee. Hate to look back to January, but obviously when you think about what happened against Alabama and having to go through the spring, I know that your unit took it very personally that they were only able to come up with 6 points in that game against the Crimson Tide. Do you hold the losses closer to the chest, especially because they come so few and far between, it seems?
Yeah, obviously that was a disappointing way to end a really good year. And anytime that happens, it goes into the off season. I think as coaches, we probably carried a little bit longer than the players do at times. And I think we did a lot of self-reflection as a coaching staff, and especially in the offensive room, of things that maybe we could do different, and hopefully, our goal is to be back in that same situation again this year. And so really as coaches and players being able to learn from that, that's part of it. That's part of that process. I mean, even the year before when we won the national championship, there was a lot of adversity that group of players went through either that season with a loss, and then also really the few years before that. And I feel like everything that we've done that's been special at Clemson, we've failed before we did it, and that's part of that process of building a strong foundation. And I'm excited about kicking it off and getting to play again and get that taste out of our mouth and get ready to go.
Just one in our final minute. Well, what specifically, if there's one or two things you can point to that you learned since then through the spring with your personnel, with yourself as a play caller, as a coach, well, what was the one thing you kind of could pinpoint?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing going back and watching the Sugar Bowl loss to Alabama was just the consistency that you have to play. I mean, when you go back and watch the game, the whole game wasn't bad. There were certain moments and opportunities, but when you play a talented team like Alabama, and anytime you're playing the teams that are there in the playoff, the margin for error is very, very small. I mean, you can go back the year before that we beat Alabama, and we made those 3 or 4 plays. They really made the difference. And this past year when we were in that same situation, we didn't finish those plays and make those plays. And so really the message for our players and ourselves is not just, making those plays, but it's the consistency in the way that you do it, and being able to stay focused and not lose poise in that situation is probably the biggest things we learned.
Jeff, thanks so much for the time. Look forward to seeing you out at camp.
Yep, glad to be with you.
That's Jeff Scott, co-offensive coordinator at Clemson. We're back in a moment on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We'll continue not only from here at the Reserve at Lake Kiowee, but also from Atlanta with Phil Kornblut at SEC Media Days as we continue our coverage of Media Weeks here on Sports Talk.
Phil, you with me?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to go to Mullen and recruiting.
No, Kirby Smart.
You're smart. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll do Smart.
All right, cool. All right, so Will's going to throw it to you, then you can throw it to Smart and then take it to recruiting.
Correct.
Faux show.
Jeez.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back, Sports Talk from dual locations from the Reserve at Lake Kiowee and also from SEC Media Days in Atlanta. We're brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Receive double CU rewards points on lodging, travel, and dining from May 15th through July 31st when you use your Founders Visa Signature or Platinum Visa credit card. Visit foundersfcu.com/Visa for full details. And Quan, we were talking earlier about Georgia, and of course, they got their turn today in their home state.
Indeed, they did, and a fair number of Georgia fans turned out to welcome the team. What they've done here is take the main media room and put it inside the College Football Hall of Fame. And if you've not been to the College Football Hall of Fame, inside of that, they've got a large room set up like a football field with artificial turf, and that's where we're sitting, and they have a stage up to the front where the coaches go and stand and talk. But to get into all of that, they've set up a little blue carpet walk-in area, and fans can come in and greet their coaches and players and get autographs and stuff like that. So there was a pretty fair number of Georgia fans, not like it is in Hoover with the Alabama nut jobs piling into the lobby there and being shoulder to shoulder waiting for their gods to arrive in crimson. So it was Kirby Smart today, and you know, think about it, guys. They were just a blown coverage away from winning the national championship last year. That's how close they came. They won an SEC championship, lost a lot of that defense from last year, lost some key people off the offense, but the bulk of the offense returns. That's something they can build on. And again, you know, with their recruiting in recent years, they can replenish some of those players that they lost on the defensive side. So, you know what? People are picking them to win the East, maybe to win the SEC championship again, maybe to get back into the playoffs again. As Kirby Smart said today, all of that's fine with him.
The momentum we created from last season has been tremendous for us through recruiting, through spring. That wouldn't be possible without the players, coaches, and our support staff embracing adjustments, change. It's not easy to go through that. After the first season going 8-5, we didn't change a whole lot, but we definitely demanded more. And I think when you do that, you've got to have a staff, you got to have a group of players who can embrace that change. And they certainly have embraced that. And we would not have created that momentum without that embracement. This season for us is going to be simple. It's going to be the measure of potential versus effectiveness. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, well, yeah, every team has a certain amount of potential. Well, I think potential is dormant ability. All right. And I think of effectiveness is what we get out of our potential. And we talk to our players all the time that pressure is really a privilege. You should feel privileged to have pressure to win games, to have expectations. And everybody's talking about the expectations. Well, last year this time, they were talking about the same expectations for the University of Georgia. I went back and reviewed my notes for this event, and it was the same thing. Georgia's expected to do this, to win the East, to win championships. Those are things that we embrace at the University of Georgia. We can't run from those things. We know that. So if pressure's a privilege, how you manage that and how you embrace that, and our coaching staff getting the effectiveness of our players out is what's important to us. And that's really the key ingredient for us going into this season. So it's important for us. We'll have a competition at an all-time high. I think that our top 100 guys out there at practice and fall camp, 110 that you get to bring into camp, will have the greatest competition we've had since my arrival. All right, we may not have the most talent that we've had, but we will definitely have the most competition. And I think competition is what separates you. I listened to Jimbo talk the other day, and he talked about the practice atmosphere and enjoying the camaraderie of the competition in practice. The best battles I've seen in my career, whether it's Miami Dolphins, Florida State, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia, they happened on the practice field. And everybody talks about iron sharpens iron. That's true. We're going to have some of the most epic battles we have for who's going to be the right guard, who's going to be the left guard, who's going to be the starting defensive tackle, because those are great competitions. That is what's going to drive us to have success, is those battles that happen throughout camp. I know a lot of you guys have already predicted the starters. You already know how many returning starters we have. I don't even know that, because I don't look at that and say, well, that guy's spot's locked up, because that's not the case. And we can't allow complacency to slip in to our program or to slip into our staff, because I know that will eat away at the core fundamentals that we've started to believe. And we had great standards set last year, standards set by a group of players that did a tremendous job. But embracing those standards will be the challenge for this group. This group doesn't have to be Sony, Nick, Lorenzo, Isaiah, Davin, Roquan. They don't have to be those guys. They've got to be the best them they can be. We got to bring out the best leaders we can and let those guys come to the forefront. And I think we've started to do that in our all-season program.
All right, Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, feeling pretty good about the talent he'll have on hand this year, and plenty of reason for that. They'll open up against Austin Peay. Should be kind of a light scrimmage for them that afternoon between the hedges. Then the next week they come to Columbia, and what will be an early season, I don't want to call it a pivotal game, because there's a lot of football left to be played. The loser of that game is by no means eliminated from anything. The winner of that game will certainly have a leg up on the competition in the SEC East, knowing that they've got that tiebreaker if it were to come down to that. And we're giving South Carolina a lot of credit here in thinking that the Gamecocks can hang in there, if not even beat the Bulldogs on that Saturday.
Well, they hung with Georgia pretty good late in the season last year when they had all guns blazing. They just couldn't overcome those two big backs in that backfield. They looked like they carried the mail for Georgia that day. The key, though, is when I listen to Kirby Smart, we always think of offensive coaches as mad scientists. They want to experiment with this guy. Where defensive coaches can be that way too, Phil. And I hear a little ringing in his voice that he can't wait to get some of those young defensive players on the field to find out what they can do, so he can tinker with his defense again and maybe show some wrinkles he hasn't shown since he's been at Georgia.
All right, we'll have more from here at SEC Media Days as we had 3 other teams come through. We'll hear from Arkansas coach Chad Morris. We'll hear from Matt Luke, the now full-time head coach at Ole Miss, and he's dealing with a situation there with probation and all, and also, of course, Dan Mullen from the Florida Gators. To recruiting, and we update Jalen McCullough, safety from Powder Springs, Georgia. He does not have a date set for a decision. The fact that there's been some conjecture about that doesn't mean it's correct, and he said he's still going to try to take visits to USC, Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama, official visits before deciding. He said Will Muschamp is on him very hard. They talk practically every day or text every day. Jeremy Pruitt from Tennessee is also on him very hard. Those are the 2 head coaches that he's having the most direct contact with at this particular time. He is eyeing a trip to USC for that Georgia weekend. And, in fact, he says he thinks South Carolina can win that game. He has no favorite at this point. USC offered 2020 running back linebacker Adam Chaney. He's out of Sauerland, Alabama. USC in basketball offered 2020 6'6" Terrence Williams, Washington, D.C. This according to the Washington Post. Some other offers are Virginia Tech, Georgetown, DePaul, and NC State. USC women offered 2021 5'8" point guard Raven Johnson from Atlanta. Some other offers for her: Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and NC State. All right. So that is recruiting. We remind you, check out our recruiting online all the time on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting, and that'll take you right to all of our recruiting information. In hour number 2, more from here at SEC Media Days as we continue to cover things around the SEC. Of course, the Gamecocks don't get here until Thursday. We'll have that totally covered for you. And more from the upstate with Will, who's been up there with the Tigers today. We'll hear from the Tigers defensive coordinator, Brent Venables, plus a visit from Kerry Tharp coming up in hour number 2 as well. We'll be back. All right, tell Will I'll bring it back from the top of the hour break and go into Dan Mullen. And then we'll roll from there. So we'll do Dan Mullen and maybe I'd rather do Chad Morris. No, Matt Luke. We'll try and do Dan Mullen and Matt Luke together in that next segment.
Okay.
And then we got Venables self-contained, and then KT, and then we'll do Chad Morris in that last segment. And you're going to hear some squeaking here because I got to move my computer to get some power to it.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, so both of these are 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, yeah, so both of these are 3 minutes. Got to try to hit these early so I don't have to use the top computer to play the outro music.
Ask me that one more time.
I say got to hit these kind of early so I don't have to use the top computer to play the outro music because that's the computer you're coming out of.
In other words, you need to have some time at the end of the second one to be able to go to that computer to play the outro music.
Yeah.
You can't play the outro music and that interview at the same time.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll get right to it.
Okay.
Oh.
Hey, just unplug that escalator for the rest of the show. Just tell them it's stairs.
Oh, he sent me a new show doc. Now this one is okay. Now we can communicate. This sheet.
Are you not going to Will at all in this segment?
Let me think. It just depends on how quickly we're going to get right into it. Just have him standing by because he may want to say something about he may want to say something about Florida. Just have him hanging loose. Tell him I've got the text box now open on the show doc that he sent, the one that actually works. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm just checking.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We continue with this very busy edition of Sports Talk on this Tuesday night. Phil Kornbluth at SEC Media Days in downtown Atlanta. We've had a very busy day with 4 teams coming through. Will Pelagic up at the Clemson golf outing with the media and the Dabo Swinney interviews and coaches interviews. A busy day up there in the mountains above Clemson. A beautiful day, I'm sure, at the reserve with some lousy golf being played, I would imagine, for the most part, with yours truly not being part of the field, a chance to win another championship going by the boards. Maybe next year we'll get this thing arranged where I can be there to play golf and still make it to SEC Media Days. That would be a coup. We'll hear from Will coming up a little bit more here in just a little bit. Professor Tom Hayes at our studios in downtown Columbia. One other recruiting note I wanted to mention, that is tomorrow, cornerback Jaden Davis out of Fort Lauderdale makes his college announcement at 7 o'clock, and he's down to Clemson, Kentucky, Penn State, Miami, and Oklahoma. Not really seeing a whole lot of vibe for any one particular school for him, so I'm a little bit in the dark about what's going to happen with him. But we'll be on top of that for you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. All right, so back here at SEC Media Days, you heard from Kirby Smart talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, another team from the East represented today. Dan Mullen, back in familiar territory after many successful years at Mississippi State, back where he won a couple of national championships with Urban Meyer with the University of Florida Gators. Gator fans are expecting Mullen to do some magic with the quarterback position, which has really been a stinker for Florida in recent years. Here's Dan Mullen talking about being back in the swamp and hoping to take the Gators back to greatness.
You know, I'm excited how our team's bought in since I've been there, and the work that the guys have tried to put in has when you take over a program, that's the biggest thing is our guys trying to.
You know what? I think we're just going
to and they've worked hard to try to do that.
What, if anything, beyond the on-field production, was it about your time with Coach Grantham that made you want to bring him with you to Florida?
Well, you know, his knowledge of the game is really fantastic. You know, when you look at a guy that can coach the defense from front to back and back to front, and you know, he's not just a front seven guy that gets help with the secondary guy that needs some help up front. He knows every aspect of the defense.
Cram it, so.
Knows how to fix problems, knows how to make sure guys are put in a good position to be successful. And that's what you want as a coach, is a guy that can look and say, hey, here's what we got. Here's what our guys do well. I'm going to put them in a position to be successful. And if we're struggling, this is how we're going to fix it. You know, he's got a lot of intensity, a lot of energy, and those are things that I like. And, you know, really, I mean, the best defensive coordinator I've been around.
Yes, you got 4 running backs with Malik Davis now being cleared that have a lot of experience. How do Clement and Pierce get into the rotation?
Well, we'll see. You know, I mean, a lot of it at that position, especially for young guys, that they learn that it's, you know, more than just here's the ball, go run with it. And I think both of them had the opportunity to go through spring, and both of them really learned that in high school. When they're great players in high school, big deal was here's the ball, go run with it, and nobody can tackle you. You know, mine is our pass protection, fundamentals, ball security, route run, route catching, making sure every detail of the offense, of knowing that you're a complete player. So the faster they pick up being a complete player, the faster they're going to get on the field. And, and I think getting through spring gave them the opportunity to learn that part of it. It's not just giving the ball, watch me run.
Hey, Dan, I know at your previous stop, you used to kind of get a kick out of us picking you 7th in the SEC West most years. I cannot pick Florida 7th in the SEC West. So sorry.
Where are you picking? You picking Florida 7th in the East this year or no?
I got to talk to David and Martez yet. I'll let you know. The first 8 months between when you're hired and when you coach a game, how is that different your second time around? What did you try at Mississippi State that maybe didn't work, that you've done a little bit differently in your second go around at Florida?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. I think you all maybe you do it better, because it's not your first time doing it, you're trying to change the culture. I probably was a bull in a china shop walking into Mississippi State 10 years ago of, how coming in and boy, I was a control freak. I was like a paranoid. I had to do everything myself. And I've learned through the years, it's not that way. Hire good people, make sure they understand what's expected of them, put them in a position to go be successful, and let them go do their job.
All right, Dan Mullen back at Florida, hoping to take the Gators back to greatness. And, depending on how you look at this thing, you had a team with a losing record last year. They had really no good victories last season, unless you want to call wins over Tennessee and Kentucky and Vanderbilt good wins, and also UAB. So only 4 wins in 7 games. Remember, they had a game canceled because of weather. But that being said, you've got 19 starters back between your offense and your defense. Your entire defense is back except for 1 linebacker. And then on offense, they've got a bunch of people back as well. Will, I think it's just simple with Florida. If they fix their quarterback situation, they're going to be very dangerous.
I've made it no secret that I'm not necessarily the biggest Florida believer. The one thing I do know that they have that you can't teach is they have talent. The problem is that talent is largely the same from last year. And as I've said, over the course of time, I don't know what in the world Dan Mullen thinks he's going to do to Felipe Franks to turn him from what he was last year into an all-conference level quarterback, unless he has some sort of pixie dust that I'm not aware of. In my mind, I don't see how Florida is better than South Carolina. I just don't.
Well, this year, I think probably the one dangerous thing I think Dan Mullen said, Corn, is when he talked about the defensive coordinator. And I would think probably he would look at film of the talent they have returning, because in my mind, ever since Muschamp left, there's been no problem with defensive talent and the defense. It's been the offense. If the defense has been affected anywhere adversely, it's because their offense has struggled so much. They've been on the field too long. And if anything Dan Mullen can do to have his offense string some first downs together, I think will be all good for that talent that's on defense.
Well, this could be a situation where you see the highly talented freshman get an early shot. If the older guy can't get it done, there'll be no hesitation to pull the trigger and go with Emory Jones, a guy that comes in with a great reputation. And so I would think that Dan Mullen's not going to mess around. He wasn't afraid to play young quarterbacks at Mississippi State who were very talented, and it paid off for him with Dak Prescott and then Nick Fitzgerald. He got those guys in early in their careers. If Franks can't get it going and get that offense moving, I think you'll see a quick hook and you'll see him go to the freshman. And they may have a defense that is going to be strong enough to keep games within their reach so that they don't have to have a juggernaut on offense. Just be better than what they were. Keep in mind that the previous coach, McElwain, was supposed to be an offensive guru himself. And for whatever reason, it got away from them on the offensive side. I'll say this. They've got a chance early in the year to get some things done. They open up with Charleston Southern. Then they're home to Kentucky. Of course, they've owned Kentucky over the years. Then it's Colorado State at home. So 3 home games to open up the season. Who knows? They could get off to a 3-0 start. Then they go to Tennessee, which I think obviously is a team that is still in disarray. Did you see what Aaron Murray had to say today about Jeremy Pruitt? Basically, he said here in Atlanta on a radio station. And of course, Aaron Murray, the all-time leading passer in the SEC, and he's a national football analyst for CBS Network. He just said Jeremy Pruitt has no business being the head coach at Tennessee, that he's not cut out to be a head coach. He does not have fond memories of him, Will, from his time at Georgia when Jeremy Pruitt was the DC there.
You know, it's odd, you know, with Pruitt, he walks into a situation that's basically a hornet's nest, you know, with Tennessee. And it's going to be something where we look very, very closely at how those first couple of years and whether or not he ends up getting the kind of time to really make things happen there. I find it interesting with him. It'll be very interesting because of the fact that there will be some I think trepidation, I'm sure, by a lot of people just to really judge him right off the bat, because snap judgments have led obviously to quicker hooks when it comes to Tennessee.
Yeah, if it's a hornet's nest there, Philip Fulmer must have the repellent. That's the guy that's going to protect things.
Okay. Okay, you'll come back and you got the self-contained piece with Will.
Yep.
Yeah, that squeak is coming from that escalator, and I'm just in an area where I can't get away from it. Everything else sounding good?
Yeah, everything sounds good.
Okay. All right, so close that. Don't need that. And go to this. Okay. I wouldn't know. She's blocked us on Twitter. I get no news nor horror nor Sync News. Here's the thing.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, as we get you ready for the football season upcoming. It's now time to welcome in the defensive coordinator of the Clemson Tigers, Brent Venables, who joined us here on Sports Talk. Obvious looking at this team from last year, unfinished business after what happened against Alabama. Does that say fresh in your mind, or is that something you've moved on from, or is that something that just kind of always lingers a little bit?
You know, every game you keep with you to a certain degree. I don't ever – last season is last season. I don't ever – I don't look at it as quote-unquote unfinished business. Just like if you win it, well, we've arrived. I don't really buy into all that. Every game has its own life. Every season is its own life. And that's the fun part of it for me, for us as coaches, for us as a team, is that every team's different and every year's different and a complete different set of circumstances and a time to, again, renewal and to start over and begin a journey.
Obviously, you got a nice little Christmas present getting 3 of your big defensive linemen back. How important is that to what you guys want to do, and how unexpected was that?
It's hard to quantify it. Obviously, what you can appreciate as much as anything, they bring experience and leadership. And it's a group of guys that care a great deal about this program and what it means to have a real commitment to one another and the brotherhood. They really have a value for that. And so for you as a coach, that's invaluable. They're, great players and those types of things. Had they moved on, we're going to go on like business as usual. And they decide to come back. Your focus as much as anything is on, all right, make sure your mind's right. It's time to go to work. We need you out in front and leading by example, and because all eyes are going to be on you, and you don't need to be anything that you haven't been in the past. Just be yourself and be the best version of you. Understand your weaknesses. There's a reason each of those guys, made a decision to come back, and obviously they've said, one's their legacy and things of that nature. But I know they all look at themselves as unfinished products, and they're still under construction, and they got work to do. And so far they've been terrific. They had they all had great winters and great springs, and just everything's business as usual, which is no surprise. And that's not always the case. Some guys will come back and feel like everybody owes them the world and things of that nature, and that's never going to sit well with us. And it's no surprise that this is a group of guys that's very focused, very committed, very systematic in their approach to, preparing and leading and things of that nature. So they hold, their roles as leaders and as players as well in high regard.
Brent Venables, Clemson defensive coordinator here. We're out at the reserve at Lake Kiowee. Looking back to the spring, I remember talking to you and remember hearing there was some frustrating days, especially after some of the scrimmages. You might not have stopped as many plays as you want. Where would you consider, I guess, your satisfaction level of the progress you've made? I know you're not allowed to deal with the players directly since the spring, but where would you say your satisfaction level is, where your progress is?
Oh, it's good. We got a chance to have a really good unit. And if, again, guys are tough-minded and committed and consistent and have a great focus to them and have a selfless attitude. So, we have a chance to have a really good unit, continual development throughout the course of the off season and the summertime, and then certainly going into fall camp to really identify, your identity. And again, some guys are going to step up. That's a fun time of this part of the years that, your old guys coming back and you, to a certain degree, what you have. And then a lot of the new guys, there'll be some guys that really emerge. Who those will be is the exciting part of it. See some of the young guys grow and mature and develop. This is a developmental game. And so you have this level of expectation that wherever we were at the end of the spring, that we'll be better starting fall camp and better by the end of fall camp.
I know you'll have to replace a real big part of your defense with Dorian Daniels' departure. I know you're trying out some different parts there. Isaiah Simmons obviously has been a big part of that. What are you looking for? I mean, it's hard to kind of quantify what he brought to the table, but it almost felt like he played 2 different positions in one.
Yeah, Dorian was a playmaker. You hate to use that that term loosely, but he really was. He made so many plays for us, competitive plays where the ball's in the air or they're attacking the perimeter in the run game, and he constantly, week in and week out, made plays. And he had a lot of opportunities to make no mistake about it, but had just a dominant senior year. So happy for him, for all the hard work that he put in. And that's what happens, though. That fourth or fifth year guy, usually if they stay committed to it, they'll play at a whole new level that last year. And it's just the difference between where you were as a freshman coming out there out of high school to where you are as a fourth or fifth year, 22, 23-year-old young man. You're just at a different level from maturity, experience. The game slows down, and you just are able to play a lot faster, more confident, sure, violent, physical, all of those things. And Dorian was a great example of that.
Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables joining us here on Sports Talk. You experienced a lot of in-season attrition at the defensive secondary, at the corner especially. Do you think that helps you going into this year because some younger guys got some experience and you also were able to kind of recruit knowing that you were going to lose some pieces to graduation and other things?
That's a good point. We did have an inordinate amount of guys banged up, whether it was Marcus Edmond or Trayvon, AJ. We lost Adrian Baker that, would have been a player for us in that rotation last year as well. And then Mark Fields missed close to half the year at different times. So, gave guys like, again, Trayvon and AJ more opportunities to play. And, obviously that's going to pay off. And, and then, of course, recruiting-wise, we're bringing in, two guys in both Kyler McMichael and Mario Goodrich. And they didn't get here until the second summer semester, but Kyler was up here quite a bit during the spring and different times during the summer. So I think both of those guys are going to have to be ready to help us. To what degree, we'll find out soon. And then again, guys like Lee Anthony Williams or Brian Dawkins Jr. Their improvement and maturation would really be helpful.
Last one for you. I know you've practiced against quarterback competitions before. What is it like practicing against a unit that has three guys who can do unique different things? And obviously, how much does that help your defense?
Yeah, they stress you. And I think that you grow and improve under stress as much, stress as you can create. We try to create stress ourselves for our guys, but offensively, they've got a lot of weapons to do exactly that, both of their ability to run the football. The quarterbacks are all multi-talented. They have different strengths, but can make the throws and systematically what we see on offense with all the movement and motions and things of that nature. Really, that does nothing but help us prepare for the season and making us adjust and communicate more. But, I'm really excited about, starting with Kelly Bryant. Man, what a incredible year he had a year ago. And who would have thought that we'd make it back to the playoffs after losing so much talent offensively. And I just think his leadership and his toughness and his will to win and he's got this even-killedness, if you will, where he just doesn't get real flustered, good or bad, from one play to another, from one series to another, from one game to another. And he's got ice in his veins and again, a real looseness in a very good way where he doesn't get too uptight. And so anytime a quarterback has the ability to extend plays with his legs and then also be a real threat in the quarterback run game and the issues that presents the defense and requiring additional hats to the football, it really opens up opportunities outside for guys to make plays one-on-one and things of that nature. So I'm really excited. I think that the maturation of the young offensive players and, of course, the spring was very evident. And from one year to the next, that's not always the case. And but really saw the emergence of not only the quarterbacks, but a lot of the skill players as well, and some of the young offensive linemen that are going to be thrown into the fold too, that we happened to see, on the scout team last year.
Coach, thanks so much for the visit. We look forward to seeing you out in camp, and we hope your get back coach has done his work in the offseason too.
Yeah, right. Hopefully we won't need him too much.
The get back coach. All right, good stuff. Okay, so I told KT, I sent him a text that don't call before 35. So we'll come out of this break and we'll go to Matt Luke. Then we'll do KT, and then we'll finish up with Chad Morris. Capiche?
Gotcha.
Tomorrow night, I'll see if I can scout out a location away from this escalator. This is where I'm at, just happens to be a good spot. Tucked away in a corner, not drawing too much attention to myself.
My ST Tharp is gone.
Your what?
My Kerry Tharp music.
I mean, it's gone.
It's not in this iAudio anymore.
You mean Darlington? The Darlington song?
Yeah.
You checked? It's nowhere to be seen?
I'm still looking. I'm scrolling through now.
Okay, well, have your other music ready to go. Actually, you don't want to play that anyway. You want to play the regular bumper since we're coming back and doing a coach first.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah, just play your regular bumper. But then after the show, see if you can find it because you'll need it again. I'll bring it back. I don't know. Make sure Will knows I'm bringing it back. Still good?
Yeah, we good.
Okay. That's some good stuff from Brent Venables up at Clemson. Enjoyed the interview with Will and Brent Venables, who always sounds like he's ready to run through a brick wall and would line up and play a football game today if they would let him. Phil Kornblut back in Atlanta at SEC Media Days. We are halfway through. 3 coaches yesterday, 4 coaches today, 4 coaches tomorrow, and then 3 more on Thursday to wrap it up. South Carolina will be here at 10:30 or so on Thursday. Will Muschamp is going to meet with the South Carolina media only before he comes out into the main room, and that'll be around 10:30. So we'll get an early taste from Muschamp on things, and then he'll start to make the rounds here at the location here in Atlanta at the College Football Hall of Fame and the Omni Hotel. Now, one of the SEC coaches in here today is a guy that took over a difficult situation at Ole Miss in Matt Luke. He went 6-6 at his alma mater last year. They could not go to a bowl game because of a self-imposed penalty. They could not go to a bowl game this year because of a penalty imposed by the NCAA. This is for infractions committed by the previous two coaches. So he's having to kind of serve their sentence. But he's okay with that because his whole family, they are all Ole Miss people. His brothers played at Ole Miss. His dad played at Ole Miss. He played at Ole Miss. And so he's just trying to help rebuild the program. And in listening to him today, guys, and this is the team South Carolina will go down and play in Oxford in early November. Here's Matt Luke talking about getting things going again at Ole Miss and feeling like he's got a pretty good club.
Last year had a lot of positive momentum to finish the season, winning 3 of the last 4 games. I felt like that really springboarded us into a top 25 recruiting class. Thought we had a super productive spring, able to work on a lot of the things we needed to improve on, and now having a great summer, not only with strength and conditioning, but also I really see the culture of our team continue to build. I really feel like all of the experiences these young men have
Let me
gone
know when
through
KT's on board.
have really brought them together as a team. So I really, really like the culture in our locker room right now. Defensively, returning 7 starters on defense. Feel really good about our secondary. We're talented and experienced there. The interior of our defensive line is returning. You'll see Josiah today along with Benito. So really feel good about that. But I think the question everybody's asking me is, hey, Coach, how are you going to stop the run? And I think we have to find creative ways to load the box and make people throw it over the top to beat us. But that will obviously be a point of emphasis for us. Offensively, return 8 starters off one of the top offenses in the conference. It all starts up front. Everybody knows about the D-lines in the Southeastern Conference. But up front, we have 103 combined starts with our offensive line. So very, very talented and experienced there. Our receiving core is one of the best in the country. Everybody, the NWO, the nasty wideouts, is very well documented, and rightfully so. Those guys are very competitive. They push each other every day to be better, but they're also unselfish. So really fortunate to have those guys. And then it's been fun for me to watch the development of Jordan Ta'amu, really picking up where he left off at the end of the season and really taking on that leadership role. So very, very excited about this upcoming season. And this time, I'll open it up to any questions you have.
How do you plan on developing your defense this year to excel past your troubles last year?
Right. Yeah. And again, it was well documented, us trying to stop the run. But I think continuity is very important. Having 7 returning starters, the second year in Coach McGriff's defense, just continue to get 1 year better. We're going to try to build off the last 2 games where they shut Texas A&M out in the second half and got 5 turnovers against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. And I think that continuity is important in trying to build and get 1 year better.
The sanctions came. Was there a sense of relief that you now know what you're dealing with? And the atmosphere change afterwards? And secondly, how precise do you have to be in recruiting evaluation now because of the scholarship limitations?
Yeah, I think the thing that was really good is I think sometimes the fear of the unknown is the biggest issue. So once all the sanctions were delivered and everybody knows what you're dealing with, you can then move forward. And I think you're seeing that on the recruiting trail. And I think always in recruiting, you have to do everything you can to be great evaluators of talent, especially in your own state. And I think this year is a great year in Mississippi.
Okay, I think this Mississippi team could be a little bit of something to handle down in Oxford when South Carolina heads down there in November. Of course, they've got a lot of work between the beginning of the season and when they see the Gamecocks. They open up with Texas Tech in Houston. Then they get Southern Illinois. Then Alabama comes to Oxford. They got to go to LSU, got to go to Arkansas, Auburn at home, at Texas A&M, at Vandy, Mississippi State at home. So, they've got a very good quarterback who showed some really good things with his arm and his legs last year. You heard the coach say that their receiving core is one of the best in the country. And you look at the numbers, they were impressive last year. A.J. Brown had 75 catches last year for over 1,200 yards. I mean, you got to vote him on the first team all preseason team from the SEC, I would think. It's a team that averaged 32 points a game last year. So they could certainly score it. Their problem was really stopping the other team from scoring.
It's odd, Corn. Looking at Ole Miss, I think that Jordan Ta'amu, they will go as far as he takes them, and I think so much of what they're predicated on is their wide receiving core, and obviously you wonder about the depth issues because of the reduction in scholarships and the fact that they've had some recruiting restrictions as well, and they're trying to do a lot more with less, but that's a lot of times when you find the most motivation, when you find the most motivated guys. I think that I don't want to say it's unfair what the NCAA did, trying to give them a second year of probation, but you can't really control that if you're Matt Luke. And I think he'll be given a real chance to win that job. I remember when we talked to Neil McCready from the Ole Miss Rivals site, he said that while I think some people behind the scenes really took to him, I think it's still going to take a lot more of the Ole Miss family to really see what this guy can do before he's fully embraced their Corn. And I think the one big thing, like we said before, it's all about Ta'amu. And if he can make things happen with the football and get those things to that receiving core, which is, again, very, very stout, then they could surprise some people.
They got to bring the land sharks back, Corn. They got to play some defense. They've got to play some defense. And I'll tell you what, they have the itchy trigger finger to throw the football. But one way you can stop the other team's run is if you run the football and not let them have it.
Absolutely. But I think the quarterback situation there, they lose a big-time talent to transfer in Shea Patterson. They're fortunate that they have a guy like Jordan Ta'amu, who's now a senior, waiting in the wings. They could be a very dangerous team. As I reevaluate things looking over South Carolina's schedule, I thought back in the spring and early summer that this looked like a pretty light schedule in the SEC for South Carolina. But as I dig deeper into these teams now and hear more about them, I'm starting to have some reservation. Again, once Thursday gets here and we're surrounded by Gamecock love and we hear all this great stuff about South Carolina, I'll probably change my opinion and think the Gamecocks can go out there and roll all of these guys. All right.
Out of that 10 wins, man. Don't talk yourself out of that. That was something that you had said earlier in the week. You seemed like you were pretty confident in it. I see no reason why 9 is not the baseline, and 10 or 11 can't be the ceiling, especially if you factor in a Georgia victory. I still think the schedule is very much manageable for South Carolina because of the games they play on the road and because of the momentum and where they get certain games in their schedule.
Yeah, I'm not backing down at all. When the Corn makes a prophecy, he stands behind it because 4 times out of 10 it'll come through. So
just don't predict 40 points per game this season. That's all.
I'm not backing up. Hey, if they don't average 35 points per game this season with this offense, with their new sped up offense, their new tempo, though, Chad Morris, who I certainly respect his offensive mind more than most, he made an excellent point today. We'll hear from Chad coming up after the break. He said tempo doesn't mean going fast every snap. Tempo means going fast when you want to go fast. And then tempo means going into the huddle and slowing things down when you want to slow it down. That's what tempo means. Everybody thinks tempo means get to the line, get the play off, and do something within 12, 13 seconds. It's about controlling the tempo. That makes for a good offense when you're talking about tempo. Back in a moment. Okay, tell Will to take it back and reset it, and then I'll throw it to Chad Morrisimo. I guess KT's taking the night off.
That's what it looks like.
I'm telling you, they think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the guy. Dabo quote, Kelly is going to play. If he gets beat out, how are you not going to play Kelly Bryant? See there? They never had that kind of talk with Deshaun Watson back in the day.
Will say he has both his AM and PM stories up for clips for our media day. Copy.
I don't know what that means. AM and PM stories. What does he mean? I mean, he's got them timed to pop up at a certain time.
He said he had a story for the AM sound and a story from the PM sound.
I mean, did he do? I don't. Well, that's good. I mean, oh, okay. I think I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, like he told you he would.
Luke deal. Sorry, Luke. When elsewhere, I don't follow. Asia Wilson still has us blocked. Thus, we will not mention that she made the All-Star team. People can find out on their own. You want to be piffy with me? I'll be piffy with you. Coastal Carolina.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We've had a fantastic day, not only in Atlanta, but here at the Reserve at Lake Kiowee. A look ahead to what we will hear from tomorrow. We will hear from opponents of the Gamecocks, both Tennessee and Missouri, out of the SEC East. And, of course, Nick Saban, normally when this event is held in Hoover, he holds the court the way he does in the home state, but he has relinquished that home field advantage, if you will, to the state of Georgia, but I'm sure there will still be plenty of Alabama influence and fan base when he takes the podium on Wednesday afternoon. We will also begin our coverage from ACC kickoff coming up in Charlotte. The coastal opponents, at least the coastal division teams exactly, will go tomorrow, and the Atlantic teams will go Thursday, so that will include Dabo Sweeney and our next chance to hear from the Tigers. We will hear from both Paul Johnson of Georgia Tech and David Cutcliffe from Duke on tomorrow's program, and also efforting a potential interview with ACC Commissioner John Swofford. But Corn, somebody who was familiar to Clemson fans, took the podium today in Atlanta.
Chad Morris, of course. He was the offensive coordinator at Clemson when the Tigers started their rise to prominence. He was prominent in the recruit Deshaun Watson and the development of Deshaun Watson, and rode his talent to great heights at Clemson, and then off to the sunset of SMU, where in 3 years he went 14-22, but 7-5 last year when things started to come together. And with Brett Bielema not getting it done at Arkansas, Arkansas turned to an offensive mind, a guy that is who is known for his creativity and the development of his own fast-paced offense. So Chad Morris takes over a Arkansas team that had some good offenses under Bielema, but went against the grain with him because Bielema was more of a run-first kind of coach and more of a power offense kind of coach. But he couldn't ever get that going with Arkansas, and did eventually go more to the passing game. Morris will come in with his up-tempo spread offense, but he also prefers to get the running game going and have the passing game come off of his running game, much like he did at Clemson. So today he made his debut at SEC Media Days, this time as the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, and he's looking forward to seeing what he can do in the big league of the SEC.
Our staff over the last 223 days have been busy recruiting, hitting the ground full speed ahead, developing our culture, and developing these young men into what we want to turn this program around. And we're looking for guys that want to be their best. That's it. Because best is our standard. And every aspect of our program is geared toward developing these young men into becoming the best they can be. And that's all I ask. I'm asked to give you my absolute best today. And that's what we ask of each and every one of our players, to be the best they can be each and every day. And that's how we're going to build this program. I've said it before, but the time is now and the place is here. Fayetteville, Arkansas is a special place. I've had an opportunity to watch several games there as a fan, and to see the fan base, to watch the excitement level. And now that we're enclosed in the North End Zone complex and getting it completed, I look forward to making that one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. Offensively, Joe Craddock's our offensive coordinator, one of the bright young minds in all of college football. Offensively, we'll be fast-paced, we'll be up-tempo. We want to be a two-back, run-oriented first football team, taking play-action shots down the field. But I also know this, that being a high school coach for as long as I have, sometimes you got to adapt to what you have. And so that'll be the coaching. That'll be the interesting part as this season unfolds. Defensively, John Chavis. When I got the job, I had one phone call that I made, and it was to John Chavis. And reached out to Chief, and having played against Chief, as a matter of fact, here in Atlanta, in a bowl game, and knowing the difficulty in preparing for his style of defense, excited me. I want to be multiple. I want to be aggressive. And I want to put pressure, and I want to disrupt the quarterback. And that was what I was looking for. And Coach Chavis came to mind right off, and I'm excited about him. As I shared with him, I said, Coach Chavis, I believe I can help you in your career because if you can defend me and defend our offense, you can defend a lot of people across the country. And I believe that he has things of value that help our offense, and we've got things to help our defense grow and as the game of football continues to change. Special teams, Tanner Burns is our special teams analyst, and each and every coach has a special teams responsibilities, but we all know the value of special teams with the rules that are changing now on the kickoff return and kickoff. It will be interesting to see how the strategy unfolds. So I'm excited about that, but special teams is nothing more than a mindset. And it's a mindset that these units win you football games, and the emphasis that are placed on these units each and every day are reserved for only those guys that want to be elite. So we're going to be aggressive and on the cutting edge in all aspects of our game. And we have a great group of young men in our locker room that have looked and worked extremely hard and locking arms with a brand new coaching staff and buying into a culture, and look forward to locking arms with the greatest fan base in college football and calling the Hogs in the greatest state to become one Arkansas. And that's my goal, is to become one Arkansas and everybody come together, because that's truly what it's going to take, is for us to unite and come together and to get this program back to where it needs to be.
Okay, that's Chad Morris, the new coach at Arkansas, and you can imagine that if he gets it going with the type of offense he can create, it will set the state of Arkansas on fire. Now, you know, under Bielema in 2015, they averaged 36 points per game. It dropped off to 30 points and then to about 29 points per game. So it was a little bit of draining there of the offenses last couple of years. One of the big problems, though, was on the defensive side, and that's why Morris went out and hired Chavis to be his defensive coordinator. Of course, Chavis didn't do a real good job when he was at Texas A&M. His defenses there were blitzed in the short time that he was there, but he had. Speaking of that, you look at the Arkansas staff, the South Carolina flavor there is incredible. You mentioned John Chavis, who's from Dillon, Joe Craddock, he spent a few years at Clemson working under Morris. Then you have former USC defensive coordinator Ron Cooper's the secondary. Former Clemson offensive lineman Dustin Fry is the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. And former Furman receiver Justin Stepp is the wide receivers coach. So Chad Morris has got a great deal of Palmetto State flavor on that coaching staff, Pro. I think, in time when he gets the right quarterback, receivers, and running backs, he's going to have himself a big-time winner at Arkansas.
Yeah, Morris he plays an exciting brand of football that will turn the fan base on, I think, there in Fayetteville. The interesting thing I'm looking for, first of all, I'm glad you hit on that earlier note, because John Chavis hopefully has burned that Matador cape he had in College Station and goes back to his brand of defense. I'm interested in this. I know he has about a 2-year start, but I'm interested to watch these three coaches in the next few years, in Tom Herman over at Texas, Jimbo Fisher, and Chad Morris, and see which one develops their program. That will be interesting, because I know Chad Morris is going to start to siphon talent out of Texas.
And the one thing, too, I mean, we talked about the recruiting and what they'll have to bring on defense. He brings in a guy that we know very well from the Columbia, at least from the Midlands area, and Dorian Gerald, the JUCO guy. So, I mean, he'll be an immediate impact guy. They got two guys who have more than 100 tackles, but a 3-game stretch of A&M, Alabama, and Auburn. Auburn, A&M, Alabama in that order, the 22nd, 29th, and then October the 6th. We'll know a lot about Arkansas by the time the calendar turns to the middle part of October, and whether or not they're legit or whether they have a long way to go.
For sure. All right, so here tomorrow at SEC Media Day number 3, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Alabama, and Will, your Missouri Tigers. Do you want me to give Drew Lock a man hug for you when I see him tomorrow?
No, that's not necessary. That's not necessary.
I mean, I think I should maybe, just touch him and let that transcend the feelings between you and him. I'll be happy to do that for you.
Dabo, by the way, made sure he told me that he didn't miss you up here. It's all good, though.
Wow. You have a good time in Charlotte. We'll reconvene tomorrow night from Charlotte, Columbia, and Atlanta. Thank you, Brian. Have a great night, everybody.
Ooh.
We get out clean?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. I was going by my clock. What time does that music run out? 7:47, what? 47?
Ooh,
what time does the music run out?
Like right at
7:57, 7:57 what?
I don't know. I'd have to run it.
We look on your sheet there.
It's 105. I played at 6, so that's 57:42.
57:42. That sounds about right. I think I was right about on it. Okay. I think that went exceptionally well from where I can tell.
We're good.
I'm pleased. Never heard from KT. That's unusual.
Yeah, no, that's weird.
He's not giving us any love anymore.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me set up here.
Okay, whenever you're ready.